Welcome to the Intern Whisperer Live, the show all about internships and how to survive them. This is Val.
This is Isabella.
And this is Jerrid.
On our show this evening is Jerrid Kalakay, professor and social entrepreneur coordinator here at Valencia College and an entrepreneur as a leadership and change engineer. Just as a note, you can now call us live on air, and the phone number for that is 407-582-2906. You can also chat through us live on the Intern Pursuit Facebook live chat. Hope to hear from you today.
And also coming up this episode of the Intern Whisperer Live, we're going to talk about some entrepreneur stories, great leaders, and intern stories.
So how can people get in touch with us? Through our social pipes. We have Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram for Pivot Business Consulting. So search for us there. It's Pivot Biz Consult. You can also find us Intern Pursuit on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can find our game, Intern Pursuit Game, on Facebook and Twitter. You can listen to us live on mixlr.com/Valencia College Radio, and then follow Intern Pursuit. We really want to boost those live listeners. And you can watch us live on our Intern Pursuit Facebook page, which is coming up here soon. So you can call us, and we sure hope Aunt Darlene calls us.
But first, let's get to our first sponsor, Florida Patients Association. Florida Patients Association, whose mission is to bring support and services to patients in the state of Florida. If you have not received the help and support you need from an injury in the healthcare industry, you can contact Florida Patients Association for guidance on your rights. Thank you, Florida Patients Association, for sponsoring the Intern Whisperer Live.
All right. So we're back. Those were fun times that we just had, so thank you guys. You stayed really calm and cool during the whole thing. So
Thank you.
that's good. Yeah, I would like to play poker with Jerron because he's just like, there's no fear in his eyes. He's just like sitting there going,
Years of practice.
Yeah, he's just totally got it under control. Okay, so our guest today is Jerrid Kalakay, and he is a graduate from Valencia College. He's also a professor here, and he has all of these great degrees. So I'm going to introduce him by sharing with people he came from the University of North Florida with a degree in business management and marketing, a master's in higher education from Florida State University, go Noles, and a second master's and a PhD from Antioch University in leadership and change. And one of the things that he is so extremely passionate about is social entrepreneurship. And I met Jerrid through Rollins College. That's actually where we didn't have that in the show notes. I'm just adding it. We met from Rollins College, and I always thought you went to Rollins College too. So that was surprising to me when you shared all of your educational institutions.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for inviting me on the show, and I'm really excited to get to spend some time with you guys talking about social entrepreneurship and leaders and all the rest of it. But yeah, actually, I didn't attend Rollins, although I did work there for a number of years, and that Rollins has a very special place in my heart and will always.
Yeah, and you were very active in social issues there on that campus too. I remember that.
I was, yes. I worked in student affairs administration as one of the assistant directors of an office there focused on leadership and involvement. Mm-hmm. And during my time there, I got to work with the radio station, WPRK 91.5.
Guys, he has radio experience.
We were just talking about that.
I did, yeah. For 4 years, I served as the general manager of the radio there. It was an amazing time. And then I also oversaw the Student Activities Board and got involved in service learning and all kinds of really fun stuff while I was there. I really enjoyed my time. I probably would still be there, but I wanted to get my doctorate. So I did both, worked full time, and was pursuing my doctorate for a period of time, and then it came time to dissertation, and where you just basically write a lot, and you know that well, Isabella, and I couldn't do it and work full time in the confines of that. So that's when I stepped away from Rollins, and then one thing led to another. 3 years or so later, I ended up coming to Valencia.
Yeah, that's a really nice story. So explain to our listeners, what is social entrepreneurship and how is it really different from entrepreneurship? Because I know something that we'll talk about a little bit later that you do here on the campus, and this is something I know that's near and dear to your heart. I saw it at Rollins. I see it here.
Yeah, so social entrepreneurship is a type of entrepreneurship that both creates social value and wealth. So a traditional enterprise or a traditional company or traditional entrepreneurship, the main goal is to create wealth creation. And so you make money, right? Mm-hmm. That's why most people go in to become entrepreneurs is to make money. Social entrepreneurship, the making money is also a huge component of it. But in addition to that, a social entrepreneur will also strive to create social value. And so social entrepreneurs, unlike traditional entrepreneurs, which have the main goal and really most of the time the singular goal of creating wealth and money and making money, social entrepreneurs have the dual role or the dual goal of creating wealth, making money, and also improving society.
So they're like a B Corp, right?
Yes, yeah, many B Corps are social enterprises.
And so a lot of our listeners may not know what a B Corp is, and that's honestly one of the things that perhaps I know typically it's a lawyer that would explain this. I'm not a lawyer, but you might be able to explain this better.
Yes, well, I am not a lawyer.
Yeah.
But I can give it a shot,
it's a
and then we'll see.
for-profit business that has the benefits of a nonprofit status. Is that it?
So it depends on so overall, a B Corp or a benefit corporation is a corporation that's oftentimes for profit, but then also has a social value component. Mm-hmm. And when I talk about social value creation, what I'm really talking about is the creation and forward progress of society, either socially in terms of people or planet, and oftentimes both. So a B Corp overall is a corporation that also benefits society, and that's where the benefit corporation or B Corp. Now, where it gets a little bit more confusing, if you're still with us at this point, is that in each state within the United States, B Corp may mean different things.
Yeah, so what does it mean in Florida?
So in Florida, there is a B Corp certification from a nonprofit organization called B Corp or B Corp Labs. And they give a nonprofit, for-profit, or a hybrid organization a certification that they're a B Corp. That's one part of it. Under Florida law, you can actually register as a B Corp in the state of Florida, and you will be officially recognized as a B Corp. Currently, there is not very much difference between Florida's take on the B Corp and a traditional limited liability corporation. However, we were one of the first states in the country Florida that is, to get a B Corp designation under the tax code. And in fact, in 2012, Clean the World here, that's based here in Orlando, became Florida's first B Corp.
Do you know how much? This is a random question too, because I'm debating on if I should make Intern Pursuit a B Corp, and I know that technically I should go and ask an attorney. But do you know how much it costs to get that certification?
The certification I do not know. It's a pretty lengthy process. That is from the nonprofit B Labs, and so you would need to talk with them about that. That's not a tax status. It has nothing to do with the Florida government. Yeah, it would just be the certification. Right now, under the Florida tax system, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of advantages specifically to becoming a B Corp, from what I understand, versus a limited liability corporation in the state. At this point, there are some states that give tax incentives and other benefits to registered B Corps in their state. Florida's just a little bit behind the 8 ball on that.
Unfortunate, yeah. And so I know that there's been some confusion about that. So, but thank you for explaining that, because it helped me to understand it better. It sounds like when one thinks about it is, well, should I do that? Definitely consult with an attorney is what
Yes.
we would always tell everybody, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Because they're the ones that can guide
Let
that.
the
Or an
experts
accountant.
be the experts.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. And
absolutely.
that's not us. So nobody should take what we're saying here as that's how you do it. Yeah. Okay, so that was really helpful. And I'm really glad that you talked about Clean the World. That's a really great example of a for-profit business that does do good work. I know that Sean, he does a phenomenal job. He's connected with hotels. He goes and collects all of those bars of soap. They get repurposed, and then they're distributed, repackaged, and distributed to third world countries and homeless shelters, I believe, right here?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So for folks that are not familiar, Clean the World started, I believe, in 2009 by a gentleman named Sean Seipler. Valencia is a big fan of his work. He's a big fan of our work, hopefully. In that he's helped us out and served as a guest lecturer in a couple of our courses, and also came on campus and did a focus group with us when we first started the social entrepreneurship program here at Valencia. And so Sean was traveling a lot for work. He was a salesman, and he was sitting in his hotel one day and realized that he realized that there must be a place that the soaps and shampoos go when he leaves the hotel, and so he called down to the front desk, and they said, yeah, they go to the garbage, and they just throw them all away. And so what he then realized was that most of this, if you open a bar of soap and you use it one time, when you leave the room, they have to throw that away. And same with the shampoos and conditioners and all those kind of things. And so he said, wow, that's a really huge waste. I wonder if there's a way to recycle those items instead of just throwing them away. Around the same time, as I understand it, his wife was reading about mortality rates in children under 5 worldwide. And she happened to mention to him that they were really high. And two of the main reasons why they're high is lack of sanitation and diseases that come from the lack of sanitation, the lack of having soaps and shampoos and all those kinds of things. And so he came up with Clean the World. And so what they do is they work with the hospitality industry to recycle used soaps and shampoos and conditioners and so forth. And then, just as you say, they donate them to the homeless in the United States and around. And then also they send them off to all different types of countries. And they've had something like a 20% decrease in child death under 5 worldwide.
Wow.
Just in that time that they've been around. So, I mean, they're just doing really amazing stuff.
Have you guys ever heard of Clean the World?
We actually talked about it on a previous podcast.
Oh, that was the one.
Yeah, and when we were talking about social entrepreneurship in terms of, I think we specifically talking about in terms of environment.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
Very
coming
good.
back
Very
around.
good. But prior to that, had you ever heard of it? Did
I
they talk
had
about
not.
it at campus?
I had not.
No, I had not.
They're from UCF.
Oh, got you.
Yeah.
Go Knights, right?
Yeah, go
Go
Knights.
Yeah. Nicely done. Yeah.
So, and then the other one that I think is I think he's a B Corp. I think it is Ben Hoyer's with Credo Coffee.
Yeah, I believe they are as well. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think they are as well.
Yeah. So Credo Coffee, just so you know, they distribute coffee. They sell it. They have coffee cafes that people can go and purchase coffee, but it's a unique model. People pay. There's suggested retail amounts that people can pay, and consumers can come and pay that amount, or they can pay less. But they are supporting coffee that is ground or produced around the world and then brought over here. And so they're helping with microfinancing and I guess micro business with small third world growers.
Yeah, so they actually do direct trade coffee, and so Ben tells a story. Ben Hoyer, who's the founder and owner of Downtown Credo, he tells a story of when he basically first got into the coffee business. He just flew to a Latin American country with a friend who was involved in the coffee business, and they took a truck into the mountains and they met with farmers. And that's basically how they started and how they continue to do work. And so they pay the farmers a fair wage, and they try to decrease as many middle people as possible. Because the coffee industry, there's the farmers, and then there's the people that harvest it, and then the people that process it, then the people that ship it, then the people that roast it, then the people that and there's all these people, and so. The margins get decreased at each step, and so the farmer gets paid very little traditionally for the end result, because they get paid at the very beginning of that chain, and by the time they get their share, it's barely anything there, relatively speaking.
Oh, that's sad.
But
I'm really glad to hear that he's changing that dynamic. So that's an interesting and real life story, real life company that's actually bringing positive change. So let's talk about your podcast. You have a podcast.
I do, yes. I have the Teaching Change podcast. You can find it at www.teachingchangepodcast.com. The podcast is really a labor of love. One of the things when I first came to Valencia and got involved in the conversation about social entrepreneurship, I really felt that social entrepreneurship and Valencia would be an amazing pair, because Valencia serves as a beacon of hope for so many people in the Central Florida community and beyond, and has done such amazing work ever since its founding back in the 60s. And one of the things that I really saw as an opportunity was that Valencia was lacking was a social entrepreneurship program. And for those of you that are listening, social entrepreneurship as a field has existed probably since the dawn of man and woman kind. But the label of it really originated in probably the late 70s, early 80s. And there's some debate about who exactly coined the term and so forth, right? Probably a lot of people coined it, but one of the people that really put it on the map was a gentleman named Bill Drayton, and he founded the organization Ashoka. And Ashoka is an international foundation that strives to work with social entrepreneurs around the world and not only highlight but also amplify their impact. And he started that organization in the 1980s and has been working in that organization ever since. Ashoka has an Ashoka U designation, which is the Ashoka, or branch rather, that is Ashoka University, or kind of stands for university. And their goal in that particular branch of the organization is to help sow the seeds of social entrepreneurship education, social innovation education in higher ed. And so in the 90s, a gentleman named Gregory Dees, and this is way more than you all need to know, but I'm a professor, so bear with me. So Gregory Dees, a fantastic gentleman at Duke University, started teaching social entrepreneurship. He was really the first person in the late 90s or early 90s. I'm not really sure exactly when. But he was really the first person that started teaching it. From there, it really played in the Ivy Leagues. The Ivy Leagues had social entrepreneurship education, and then it went to the big universities. Then it went to the liberal arts institutions, which is where I was introduced to it when I was working at Rollins College. I was introduced to social entrepreneurship, the idea that you can create a business and use business to not only make money but help the world. And that was as an undergrad business major who had left business because of what I perceived to be the kind of cutthroat nature and the slash and burn tactics that when I was doing internships, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, that I witnessed. And that made me want to go into education, specifically higher education. When I found social entrepreneurship, it really married two of my things that I am fanatically obsessed with, which is positive social growth for the world, making the world a better place, and business.
Yep.
And so that's an amazing thing. It played around in the Ivy Leagues, the liberal arts, the big universities, and now finally it's come to community colleges. And Valencia, in the last 3 years, we've had the honor and the privilege to become one of few institutions kind of leading the way in social entrepreneurship education at the community college level.
And he had a competition. I know I talked about this several months ago. I went in and I was able to teach Perfecting Your Pitch. He had students that put together a concept, and then they got to go pitch it before social entrepreneur experts. And there was actually cash money associated with that.
There was, yeah. So one of the things I do here at the college. So going back, I'm sorry, I apologize. I got off track. So the Teaching Change podcast is a way to amplify the work that we're doing here at Valencia within social entrepreneurship education and innovation, and also to spread the word of what it is in general.
Nice.
And so, what better way to share a message than in a new form, a new medium, podcasting, radio, etc. So that's what we're doing. One of the things I do here at Valencia is not only do I teach courses on social entrepreneurship and other classes, I also advise or co-advise rather the Social Entrepreneurship Club, which is a club made up of about 30 students. And this previous spring we had the inaugural social enterprise pitch competition, in which teams from across Valencia were able to enter into the competition completely free. And they had to pitch their social enterprise. And they had 3 minutes to do it. We hosted several workshops. You were, as you mentioned, one of the workshop facilitators for that, and thank you for doing that. To make sure that they were ready and they were prepared to present their ideas. And then we had excellent judges from the community, all local social entrepreneurs, fantastic folks come in and judge the pitches.
You have a question, I think.
Well, I just wanted to clarify for our listeners, where can we find your Teaching Change podcast?
Sure, yeah. It would just be at teachingchangepodcast.com. It's also wherever you would get your podcasts.
So like iTunes?
It's on
Okay.
iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, all of those fantastic places. You could also follow Teaching Change at Teaching Change on Instagram, Facebook, all of that kind of good stuff too. Twitter.
All your socials. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's important.
So, and the winner of that, I'd like to give a brief shout out, is a woman named Jasmine Diaz. Who
She was a guest on our
She was
show.
recently,
remember
yeah.
Jasmine?
Yeah, that was
Fantastic.
one
Yeah.
of the prizes.
Yeah,
was
exactly.
Yeah.
That was one of her prizes. Started Queens for Queens, and obviously your listeners are well versed in kind of what she's doing and what she's about. And so, it was really a really great first inaugural winner. And this is going to become a signature program that the Social Entrepreneurship Club will host every spring. So we'll do it again this upcoming spring, and we're looking to have even more teams participate. So we're pretty excited about it.
She won money, guys. Real money.
She did, yeah, she did. She won real cash money, and then as you were one of the workshop facilitators, also Deanna Kalakay, who is also my partner and wife in life, and she was one of the facilitators as well. And both of you were very gracious and offered fantastic services, packaged services to Jasmine as part of the winning. So
Yeah.
she's off and running, and it's best of luck to her.
And
It's
she's
really awesome.
changing the world.
Absolutely.
She is doing that.
And I did have a question. I don't know if we touched upon it earlier, but what sparked your desire for seeing social change?
Yeah, so probably a lot of things. I one of the things that I never really understood was why people were treated differently because of arbitrary reasons, whether it be skin color, eye color, height, size, whatever. It never really made much sense to me. And so from a very, very young age, I also lived in I grew up in Connecticut, and my particular neighborhood was pretty diverse. My best friend was Portuguese. I am half Czechoslovakian, half Italian. And I just enjoyed and appreciated living and knowing other people that were from different walks of life. I didn't know that was different than other people. There was people that grew up not in those kind of environments. And so when I moved to Florida for high school, was really the first time I truly understood difference. And it was unfortunately because there was racial tensions in my middle school, and the fact that I had never really confronted racism or even the idea that I was a white heterosexual male until at least high school is a testament to how privileged I had been, because it wasn't something I needed to deal with. So all of that is probably the root of my social activism. When I got into college, things started becoming more pronounced. I happened to have some really good friends that were gay. And this is back in the early 2000s, and they were not necessarily treated that well on some of the campuses I had been on. And I didn't think that was appropriate, and so I got involved in gay and basically the GLBT. It was GLBT, now GLBTQ and some other letters. But I got involved in the movement for gay rights at one of my undergraduate institutions, the University of North Florida. And then just kind of went on from there. So my activism has always been kind of around. When I got to Rollins is when it really kind of blossomed, because then I had an opportunity to help students get involved in service learning, which is the idea of learning inside the classroom and then leaving the classroom to go actually serve in the community. And the service in the community complements what you're learning in the classroom. And so I got to teach pretty early on. I got to teach a class on hunger and homelessness. And in the class, we researched and we learned about hunger and homelessness through textbooks. And then the other half of the class, we went out into the field and worked in soup kitchens and community centers and so forth, and actually met the people, that we're reading about in the textbooks. And from that experience, I saw the students, and in a course that only lasts a few weeks, the transformation in their worldview and the transformation of my worldview was so dramatic. There's no looking back from that point. I believe that we're all here to do something, and I believe that we're all here to do something good. Unfortunately, I don't think many people find out what that really is. For me, it's to leave the world a little better than the way I found it. And most selfishly, that's for my own children. I mean, I've got three young kids: Uriah Jack, who is 9, Raleigh Michael, who is 7, and Valen Flora, who is 4, just turned 4. And I want to make sure that they grow up in a world that's a little bit better than the world that I grew up in, and then et cetera, et cetera. And so I think that's our calling as humans.
I would agree. I think it's to serve others.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Good questions, guys.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, and I mean, and social entrepreneurship, the beautiful thing about that is that gone are the days where, so when I was first at Rollins, there was really, what I observed about the students was really that there was 2 paths. There were the students, and Rollins is not a cheap institution. For the most part, it's pretty expensive to go. It's actually just ranked, I think, number 1 in the state as far as the largest price tag. It's a fantastic institution, but it costs some money, being a private liberal arts college. And what I saw in the students was really there's 2 pathways. There was a pathway for the students that wanted to do good in the world, and then there was a pathway for students that wanted to do well in the world. And they were mutually exclusive. And what I mean by that is there was a students that wanted to do good, had to basically then choose that, and then they would not receive the bounties of a high-paying job.
Yeah, like working in
a successful
nonprofit.
career. Yeah, it was philanthropic. It was nonprofits, etc. You basically lived in squalor in some cases, or you went and did well for yourself and you made a lot of money, but you weren't concerned about society, or you weren't concerned about the environment. Maybe later on in life, when you made a bunch of money, you can then give back and become a great philanthropist. But that was really the two roads that I saw my students struggling with when I was at Rollins early on. And then when I saw the introduction of the social entrepreneurship program at Rollins, and I saw that those 2 roads were no longer mutually exclusive, it was an absolute game changer for me. Because now the students that would ordinarily have had to pick one of those paths, and it would have been a difficult path for them to choose. Now they didn't have to. They could still make money and do well for themselves, their family, etc., and also at the same time do good, and they could help society and make money. And Sean Seipler and Ben Hoyer are great examples of that. Both gentlemen have families. They've got they live a good life, and they're doing really amazing stuff in the community.
For someone who's unaware about like the avenues that you can take in social entrepreneurship, what is a good way to get started? Like, how can people learn the first steps that they want to take to become more knowledgeable or even make a career path out of this type of field?
Yeah. So selfishly, first listen to Teaching Change, the podcast.
That's not selfish. That's just wisdom.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So that would be the first way to start doing it. The other way is just to, I mean, if you're in a position to be able to donate some of your time and do some community service, visit Clean the World or visit Downtown Credo, or Feeding Children Everywhere, which is another local social enterprise, and start talking to folks. Also, there's tons of books on Amazon and tons of books at your local library on social entrepreneurship. Google it. Find out some stuff about that. There's also conferences you can go to.
The Shoka.
Shoka conferences and then other local conferences. Or you can come to Valencia and take the social entrepreneurship course. GEB 1155.
Yep, and then you can meet Jerrid.
Yep, and when you come to meet me and you become one of my students, you'll call me Dr. K instead of Jerrid, but I'd be excited to have you in my class. Yeah. Those are all
if you
great
enjoyed
ways.
a whole hour of this, you'll enjoy a whole semester.
Yeah.
That is true.
Or if you don't enjoy this, you still enjoy the semester.
Yeah.
He's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah. So I think we covered that one. I want to talk about great leaders. Who are the leaders that have influenced your life?
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, I would have to say, I mean, there's so many. Nothing happens in a vacuum, right? And so there's tons of leaders that have influenced me. I would think some of the leaders that have directly impacted my pathway, even though they have no idea they did, and many of them weren't even alive when I was born. First would be Horace Mann. He's actually the very first president of Antioch College, which I graduated with my master's and my PhD from Antioch University, which was the outgrowth of Antioch College. And why he's one of my favorite leaders. He was an educational philosopher and a bunch of other things. He was also a politician for a period of time before he became the first president of Antioch College, which is in Yellow Springs, Ohio. Very progressive liberal arts institution. And he is famously quoted for saying, "Be ashamed to die before you have won some victory for humanity." Mm. And so I try to emulate that in all I do. And so he would definitely be one of my favorite leaders. Also, Amelia Earhart, and simply because even today. I just read an article just the other day that one of the major airlines had their very first pilot and co-pilot be African-American women. It was the very first flight that had ever been piloted and co-piloted by African-American women.
That's amazing in this day and age.
And it was news. I mean, it was news. I forget the airline, but it just happened like within the last 6 months.
Wow.
And so to think back to when Amelia Earhart was flying. I mean, the tremendous uphill battle that must have been for her to even get into a plane, let alone fly it. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's a lot of bravery there.
Yeah,
a lot
absolutely.
of courage.
And then I think my last one. I like threes. So I think the last one would be Jimi Hendrix. Not only what he did with music, but what he did in general, just his life. And he has one of my very favorite quote. He said, "When the power of love becomes greater than the love of power, the world will know peace."
Oh, that's a nice one. Is that a song too?
It is not. No, it's just a quote. Yeah, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace.
Yeah, that's really good.
It is a great quote.
And those two women were Tara Wright and Mallory Kay for Alaska Airlines.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And it was literally like just a couple weeks ago or so.
Yeah,
right?
it was May. Yeah.
Yeah, May. Yeah.
Yep,
so
late
that,
May.
The last month. Wow.
Yeah, you would. I mean, it's just amazing, right? You would have no idea, right?
Yeah.
We would think that should have happened decades ago,
Right.
and in reality, it's 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But the best response is it's never too late either.
That's right. That's right. We are moving very slowly forward.
We do have some listeners. Yay. There's Diana. Hello, Diana. I know she's listening in on her drive home. She told me that's what she does.
Nice. Hello,
Yeah.
Diana. How are you?
She is also a Rollins girl and a Valencia student.
Oh,
too.
very
she
nice.
graduated from Valencia, moved over to Rollins.
Oh, very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. That's exciting.
So let's talk about internships. You said that you were an intern, but you've also been on the employer side of it, and we use this hashtag called What I Learned. So there's hashtag student what I learned and hashtag employer what I learned. I'm sure that they were very different experiences for you.
Yes, yes. So I've interned maybe 5 or 6 times in my life. My very first intern was actually from one of my college professors. He had a consulting business, and myself and my partner, we were working on a project for the class. And at the end of the project, he asked us to serve as interns for him over the summer. And his consulting business was specifically working with expats that were getting ready to, and expats are expatriates. They are folks that work in the United States or live in the United States, but then they are sent by their companies overseas. And they call them expats. And there's a very high rate of failure. And that is, most expats stay in a international context for a very short amount of time before they have to come back. They just kind of flake out. They don't enjoy it, etc. And so his company, what he was doing was he was advising and consulting organizations and companies on how to increase the success of an expat going abroad and being successful. Because as you can imagine, it costs a lot of money for a company to send someone to another country and set up a whole new life. And and if they only stay a year, then that could be money lost. And so, so I worked with him on some research projects and so forth. What I learned as an intern with him is that professors are human beings, and they do all the things that human beings do. Up until that point, I'd always kind of viewed my professors like on a pedestal, and it was almost like when you're in elementary school and you see your teacher for the first time in the grocery store.
Oh my God, yeah.
And it's like it's such a jarring
So you have
experience.
a life outside the classroom?
Yeah. I'm not kidding. I was a public classroom teacher too, and students would come up and go, "You eat grocery shop?"
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
Yeah.
Really?
Well, you don't live at the school?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember it distinctively. I think I was in 3rd grade, and we went, and again, this is in Connecticut, and I went with my mother to the grocery store. I think I was sick that day. I think it was a school day, and I saw my 3rd grade teacher in the grocery store, and she was shopping. It just blew me away. 1, it blew me away because why wasn't she at school? And then 2, I got really nervous because she saw me and I wasn't at school. Luckily, I was with my mother. But like I remember even to this day that it was a really jarring experience. So when I interned with my professor, who I was relatively close with, when I started working with him, all the glamour of professorship kind of went away a little bit.
But yet you're a professor.
Yes, yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy world.
Yeah, you were called to do it still.
Yes. So I learned that people are people. That human beings are human beings, and regardless, we all have the same hopes and aspirations to live a good life and to be happy. And we all have irrational fears. He happened to be afraid of cats, like actually afraid of cats. And so we went to a conference. It was in Jacksonville, so it wasn't very far. But as we were walking into the hotel, a cat jumped out, and he screamed louder than I'd ever heard anyone scream in my life. And he was a pretty burly, big guy. And so
those make for the best stories.
It was very comedic. And he's like, "Don't tell anyone that happened."
That was before Facebook filming.
It was before,
Yeah.
yeah. Now he would have had a really tough time. But but then it was just me and my colleague, who's one of my, we were both, I think, seniors at the time. And so we didn't dare say anything because we had still two more classes with this professor. So we didn't dare say anything. But if Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, it would have been all over the place.
Yeah, it sure enough would. Well, that's a good story. So now on the employer side, what did you learn from working with students now as the employer?
So it is. I think the biggest thing I learned is it's a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
It's a ton of work and working with interns. if you do it right. If you do it right, it's by far much more work than they'd ever be able to produce for you. Because you have to, the way that I view it is it has to be a learning experience. Not only do they gain experience, but they have to learn. And you know, when interns come in to work with me, they're at all different levels. I mean, typically. And so they may be really advanced in social media, but they have absolutely no ability to write a paragraph, you know, or they might be really great writers, but they have no idea what an Insta tweet or whatever is.
Yeah, they also don't always know how to use it in the business world.
Well, and that's a huge part of it. Yeah. Business decorum and what is appropriate, what isn't appropriate. Yeah. And so all of that kind of has to be taught. You know, but what I have found is that the more energy you put into them, the better
the results. I would agree with that. Absolutely. So those are two good what I learns. I appreciate that. I know we're getting close to the end of where we're supposed to be. We really don't have an hour. We really have 50 minutes because there's another show that comes in behind us. So we want to be able to give a little shout out for one of our other sponsors.
Yes, and that sponsor is Affiliate Manager. Affiliate Manager offers a complete management service that covers all aspects of developing and optimizing an affiliate program. Not only do we provide expertise, identify high potential opportunities, and execute campaigns to maximize performance, we make it a point to require minimal work from our merchant partners. You can reach them at affiliatemanager.com. Thank you, Affiliate Manager, for sponsoring the Intern Whisperer Live.
So we're going to be wrapping up here. And so I know that we talked about the what I learned, and I didn't forget, there's one more thing. You have a lot of students that come through in your campus and in your podcast. Do you have any students that work with you on your podcast?
We do not. No, we've had a couple of interns in the past. We currently are looking for interns. To work on the show.
You know they have a program here where you can get them. Yeah,
I do. Yeah, absolutely. So it's not something that we've aggressively recruited for, but we do have internships available on Teaching Change, and we would love to meet some folks to do that.
So one of the things that I was invited to do was go and speak, and I honestly cannot remember the instructor's name. It's a woman. She teaches here. It was a teaching podcast. And I was showing the students how to set up their show notes and talking to them about what's involved with being able to set up a podcast from a business perspective. And there were things that they had no clue how to do. So setting this up is like a system. Do you have a system already in that business side of your podcast?
Yes and no.
So that would be the first place I would recommend that you get a student involved, is to help document that. That's really where Jerron and also Val have been hugely instrumental. Why don't you guys tell him what it is that you did in the beginning when we were starting the show? We'll start with you, Jerron.
Sure. At least my basic priorities, at least when it comes to setting the show, I guess just every week in general, would be usually to make sure I contact the guest first of all. As I told you when you came through the door, I'm sorry if I blew up your phone a lot. Just calling to make sure you're coming.
Yeah.
But it's really just about confirming the guest first of all. Because first of all, I mean, you can have a show, of course, between just the two of us because, you know, the audience still wants to hear our opinions, but the guest always helps make the show. So we want to make sure you come for sure. So that's always like my main thing at first.
So we had to create scripted messages, right? And we had to create a process of, you know, being able to contact them. We had to create show notes. We had to create our guest calendar. And then we've worked on, although we haven't not formally monetized our show, we're in that process, and we have a strategy to be able to monetize.
That's great.
Yeah. So, and then what have you learned, Val? Because you were the second one in here.
Yeah, so when I came, a lot was already established because Jerron and Isabella had already hashed out so much of what we still use. So I came in at a time when we were kind of updating everything that we were using. So, like, I remember the biggest thing for us was, like, the direction sheet. Because I remember I got the direction sheet on how to get here. I don't know if you didn't have to use that because you know where you're going. But for most people who have no idea where this is, like, I remember that it was kind of confusing. Then we updated that, and then updating
our questions, our leadership questions.
Yeah, our leadership
right?
questions, and just a lot of different small changes. It's the main thing I would say that I've learned is that a lot of small changes end up at a big difference. So
one of the biggest things is that you added the graphics. So
that was a big thing that I wanted to do, was
Yeah.
add more graphics to the show, because we had a lot of static shots and we want everything to be more interesting. So we, adding more graphics up the production value, making sure that our relationship to the guest is more important, because we want them to also
Guest experience.
Yeah, guest experience be as best as it possibly can. So, working on that, just a lot of things. And there's always something that could be better. So just looking for that and trying to improve on it.
Just doing the show itself, we realize our faults, and then we know how to improve them going forward. So.
Yeah. No, it's great. I mean, it's great. I appreciated the several phone calls, and I wish I had realized that I should have. I wish I would have realized that all you needed was a call back to say yes, I'm coming. I assumed that you were just making sure that I was on my way, or I was going to be there.
No, if anything, it's like it helps me be more clear in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
So now you know that you need to say, hey, please call me back.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I was just like, all right, yeah, cool. I'm going.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I appreciate it. I thought it was really cool. Yeah. I mean, it's certainly been a fun time here. I mean, this kind of work is such a labor of love. It's so complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, what you hear on the other end is oftentimes really polished, and you don't realize how much work goes into putting something like this together. I mean, in the hours. For every hour of programming, there's countless hours that go into to creating it, and then to do it live. It's only my second time being live in recent history, and so all of my shows are recorded and most of the time recorded at least 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time. So this live business is scary.
Yeah, live is especially challenging because you have a very set schedule. You have to be on by your scheduled time. If you're not on,
you never know what technical difficulties you might have.
Yeah. As was today.
But we worked through it.
We worked through it. Yeah, you get through it.
Yeah. I think one of the nice things about doing it live, though, is that so I tend to sometimes be a perfectionist, and so because it's a recorded show, I can labor over getting everything exactly the way I want
Putting
it.
those little sounds, everything, making it.
Yes, and sometimes I get carried away with that, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so being live, like once it's done, it's done. It's out there. There's not much you can do. Which is there's a little bit of freedom in that, but it's scary. I gotta give you hats off to you all, because live is wild.
Oh, it is. We like it. Well, I know we have to. I'm going to give a special shout out to Valencia College. We always love being in the studio. We want to thank Q for being our manager here at the station. And then I want to give my shout outs to all of my listeners, but also to the guys that are in the room with me that make all of this magic happen, and to all of the rest of my Pivotopians and Interim Pursuit people. So they all know who they are, but man, I am grateful for every single one of them.
Pivotopians, I like that.
I know,
Yeah.
Pivotopians. That's Tyler Edlin. He coined that phrase.
I like that
so
phrase.
I think we're going back over here. What are your shout outs?
Oh, well, for me, just thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you to Isabella for having us. And also thank you, Jerry, for being such a great guest. It was fun. Having a great time as always. So.
And as always, thank you, Isabella. Thank you, Jerrid, for coming to the show. I won't blow up your phone next time. And thank you, of course, to my family as always. Darlene can join us tonight, but I'm sure she'll watch afterwards.
I bet she will.
Any shout outs for you, Jerrid?
Yeah, well, I'd love to give a shout out to my beautiful wife, Jerrid Kalakay of Powerfully Productive. Also, my 3 children, Uriah Jack, Raleigh Michael, and Valen Flora, who I told I was going to be on the radio, but I think they probably went to the FM dial because I did not see them on Facebook, although none of them obviously have Facebook or any social media
No,
yet.
would have been
they're
Mom doing
too
that.
little. But I'm sure they'll catch the video. So shout out to them. And then shout out to all the great folks at Valencia for all the work that they've been doing, guiding and developing the social entrepreneurship program.
Cool. All right. So
yeah, wrap the show up just
Wrap
like we
it
end
up.
it. So when I point at you, just say your name. So this has been Val.
This has been Jerron.
this is Isabella.
This is Jerrid.
And thank you for joining us for the Intern Whisperer Live. We'll see you next time.
Bye.